Hey everybody, today my last video was probably about am I in mixed voice, am I using mixed voice correctly. Today we're going to talk about am I distorting correctly. And there's going to be a lot of different things we can say about this, and I'm just going to go off the cuff and try to talk about my experience with it, my experience with students with it, my experience hearing different people distort, try to distort, blah, 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 blah. If you want to learn more about that or figure out if you're having trouble with it, then join me and we'll chat about it. All right, so where to even begin? A lot of people want to learn how to do mixed voice. A lot of people want to learn how to do distortional things. A lot of people want to throw their voice for loops and do all these crazy things, including myself. It's I tend to be one of these people that when I hear people do stuff with their voice that I can't do, I'm excited by it, and I'm like, man, I want to figure out how to do that. How the fuck do they do that? And there are going to be pitfalls along the way. There are going to be things that you find that some people can do better than you, and some people are more naturally inclined to do than you. Just even by their physiology, some people are able to distort differently, distort longer, distort less, blah, 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 blah. So, as we go down this rabbit hole, leave comments in the comment section and tell me about your experience, and maybe I can try to guide you a little bit. Or if you want to learn more about this stuff, I do more on Patreon. It's always an ad-free experience over there, and I'm always trying to engage more and talk to people and answer their questions, etc., etc. So, first of all, I did a video called 3 Types of Distortion. There are 3 types of vocal distortion. There's vocal fry. That's when the vocal cords are just like this. We have a together vocal cord closure, which is what you're hearing when I speak. And then if I push just a little bit extra air over those, they start to erratically vibrate. So that's called vocal fry. If I go above that, there's these muscles called the false cords. Like that. Those are going to get into distortional places. They're going to distort at times, but they tend to be harsher on the voice. Anything that's located close to the vocal cords, or that you're kind of bearing down close to the voice, is always going to be harder on your voice, harder on your throat, etc., etc. Then there's the upper soft palate noise that we can try to find, which a lot of people struggle with, and it sounds like so it's more sharp, it's more weed whackery, and it tends to be more desirable in terms of sound. It's easier on the voice. It takes pressure off the voice. So now, if you're somebody that's trying to figure this out, there's a few questions to ask yourself first. Are you somebody that knows how to mix your voice? Are you somebody that, let's take this off. Let's get sexy in here. Are you somebody that knows how to mix? Are you somebody that cares about mixed voice? Because those things are really important first. If you're somebody that has no knowledge of mixed voice and you don't really care about that, then your distortion might be a little bit different than mine, and your experience with this stuff might be a little bit different than mine. I tend to teach everything all the time that is, can you rise from the note? Can you rise from the note? Are you building a wall and then hitting that wall, meaning you can't go any higher than that note? Perfect example of this would be Shinedown. A lot of people love that dude's voice. Great voice. But he's taking chest as high as it can go, and then that's it. And there's no kind of head voice thing happening unless he transitions literally to head voice. But he's pushing that like first gear, fucking ramping that first gear up there and utilizing that. And a lot of people have great careers like that. Most people have a career where they're utilizing chest voice, sometimes some head voice or falsetto, but for the most part, that's what they're doing. If that's you, then your distortion might be a little bit different. But the important thing to recognize in that is, are you hurting your voice? How sustainable is it? And how long can you do it? And, what kind of distortion are you finding? Like Chester Bennington's another great example. High-voiced dude taking chest voice as high as it can go. Sometimes stretching chest voice, but it's chest voice all the way. So if you were to look up some of these people, it is physically taxing for these people to keep hitting those high notes, to the point where sometimes they can't add distortion to them, or they just don't even hit the note, because a voice like that, or a chest voice kind of thing like that, where you're ramping first gear the whole way, is more physically taxing. So once again, if you're finding a distortion like that, or that's the way you sing, know out of the gate that there's a kind of unhealthy element to it because of that constant bombardment of like, here comes the high note, fuck, kind of thing, all right? So whether you're distorting up top or whether you're distorting down here, Metallica, another great example. Never really any head voice in there, the later Metallica. It's always down here. Yeah! 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 It's just down here and it's locked. And if you got a note higher than that you have to go, most of the time it's not going to happen. Or if it is, you're bearing down physically to fucking put everything you have into it. And in my experience, that sucks. It's just really troublesome in a live environment. But like I said, depends on what you're doing. If you're somebody that mixes or they're learning about mixed voice, we're getting into a different place there. So anyway, how can I break this down? We talked about the lower distortion first, the false chord distortion. This is typically, I think, the distortion most people find first. It can be okay, but I want you to recognize, first of all, that if you're compressing down here, yeah, and you're finding that distortion, since it's low in the neck, every time you go higher, it's like attaching a weight to your voice. And the higher you go, the more it's like pulling you back down. So therein lies a problem with that distortion, in that it's always going to kind of limit you and it's going to be tiring. It also tends to put more tension in the body and the neck and etc. And if you watch a lot of my videos, you'll hopefully remember that I've said the more you can keep getting out of the neck and the jaw and everything like that with any singing, the better off you're going to be constantly, all the time, because we're alleviating a whole bunch of pressure in the upper chest, etc., etc. It's not an easy task. It's going to take time. And as I said in my last video, this whole thing is a journey. You're not going to watch a video, find something in a week and just find something and just be like, now I got it. It does not work that way. It's never going to work that way. If it does work that way, you find a day that something's working for you and then you're calling up your friends and you're like, listen, I can scream my head off or whatever. That's not, you didn't find it. You probably just wore your voice out, and reach something where your voice is kind of tired or whatever, but then you'll probably wake up the next day and not be able to do it, and then you'll fucking hate life. I know, because I've done that plenty of times and find many students like that. So anyway, yeah, if you can find that distortion down there, it's kind of okay. Let's do it in minor, because we're talking about depressing songs and distortion. Sorry, gotta learn piano. So it sounds kind of okay. Sounds kind of, sounds kind of tough. But it's locking me into my throat very much, and I can't take it very high. So when I get close to my bridge, I'm done. So are you distorting correctly? Like I said, kind of, but it's going to limit you, so just keep that in mind. Here's another big catalyst to distortion. I have to be loud to do it. I have to be quiet to do it. If either one of those are part of this, then you're doing something wrong. I've had students come into my studio and just fucking yell their head off, and that's how they're finding their distortion. I don't know how people think that that's sustainable, but dude, you're always in the wrong place with everything vocally if you have to be loud. That is always wrong. It's never good. It's never sustainable. It's never healthy. It's just not going to work. So if that's the case, obviously you're doing something wrong. And that's the way that you're getting your voice to rattle and finding these spaces. It's never like that. Most of the spaces that we find are just a matter of placement and placing the voice somewhere. Kind of like an accent, or kind of like trying to do somebody's voice. I remember somebody saying before about talking like the Beatles, and they talked like John's back here and Paul's up here, or whatever. That's just a matter of, never force or anything like that. It's a matter of placement. To take this one step further, I actually got to go to California a long time ago and talk to a bunch of these professional voiceover artists, because I love voiceover. And I talked to D. Bradley Baker, who does some of the craziest voices, monster sounds and shit that you hear in films. Those aren't real monsters. They're a dude with like a bowl going like making these crazy noises. So I talked to him because I was convinced at some point that I maybe was finding like a good place, but I needed to build strength and strength and strength. So I was convinced that I couldn't do something because I needed to strength train my neck and all this. And I remember asking him about that, and he was like, no, That's not the case. It's just a matter of finding it and then sticking to the pocket and finding the pocket. And while I'll say that, we're definitely going to build strength and things, it's more about building strength to stay in a pocket or to stay in a specific coordination than it is about, I'm going to do strength training and just keep getting, it's kind of not that. So anyway, that's important to mention here too. I have to be quiet when I do it, and I can't really make it very loud. You're in the wrong place again. Just like mixed voice, if you cannot make it any louder, or, you're stuck in one thing where it's just like, oh, this is my distortional voice. Oh, you're not in the right place either. Obviously, if you watch some of your favorite singers, that's not the case. So watch them walk around on stage, watch them perform. Another important thing to remember here, or distinction about distortion, is that distortion does, even in all of its forms, right and wrong, get tiring. Most people in the studio, it's a totally different story. You have as many fucking takes as you want. But watch David Draymond from Disturbed. Distorts through every song, throughout most of the notes. Is he doing it live all the time? No. Chris Cornell? No. Judas Priest? No. These are some of the masters of vocal distortion. And are they doing it throughout the whole song and stuff? No. It's tiring in its own way, even when healthy. So a lot of times they have to kind of pick their moments, myself included. After a good amount of time doing this, I can't just stay and just keep running through all those vowels and words through that space. I have to kind of let some of it come forward and then try to keep picking my moments. So keep that in mind as well. You're not going to come upon most of the time a perfect distortion that just stays there all the time. If you do, there's plenty of things I could say about it. The more we shed, we're finding a pocket, and the more we shed our enunciation and stuff, we can stay in that pocket. But after a while, it might start getting monotonous and sounding kind of strange. Oh, life, I'm gonna give it up. It's just going to be kind of goofy after a while. So, what else can we talk about with this? I answered this in mixed voice as well. Do I need support to find distortion? I've seen some people that are bearing down like a motherfucker, and their body's like shaking. There's actually a teacher where I've seen him sing some distortional stuff, and he has a lot of good information, but if you watch him distort and sing some like Chris Cornell stuff, he's bearing down so hard that he's like shaking. That's usually, once again, not the case. Watch some of your favorite singers. They're walking around, enjoying themselves on stage. If every part of you needs to bear the fuck down to do this, you're probably doing something incorrectly. So across the board, again, a lot of this stuff is more about finding a pocket, finding a coordination, finding a space, and then trying to learn how to utilize that space and stay in that space. It's more about stretching, and it's more about the path of least resistance. The more you follow that ideal throughout your singing journey, the more you're going to keep finding things lightly along the way that are working for you instead of against you. If you're thinking like I did, where, fire meets fire, push harder, build strength or whatever, you're kind of going down the wrong path. Ironically, like I mentioned, it's actually a lot of times about relaxation and recognizing that you can find these things in an easier way and then put diaphragmatic support underneath of them and then make them louder. Do you need volume to make distortion? No, you hear me doing some quiet stuff right now so that I don't blow up the mic. There, I'm trying to make it as quiet as I can. There's the same distortion with barely any volume. Then I learned how to put support underneath of it, and the whole getting it louder and singing through it is the hard thing. Then I can learn to push underneath of it. And at first you might not have the resiliency or the strength to keep those vocal cords together. Remember, once again, chord closure is everything. If you don't have chord closure, you're blowing apart, you don't have anything either. So I could keep going on about this. I think I've meandered along enough, and hopefully I've mentioned some things that you might be dealing with. If you're somebody that mixes and does mixed voice, keep in mind every exercise that you're doing, every song that you're singing. Can I rise from the note? Can I rise from the note? If you're singing something like I was just doing, which is up here across my bridge, I just did this in the last video. I was doing Audio Slave, Show Me How to Live, and I was singing it quietly. Nail in my head from my creator. Nail in. I was already singing it higher. Nail. So if I'm distorting that, nail in my head, and I'm trying to start bearing down, can I go higher? Nail in my head. Nail in my head from my creator. Can you keep rising from the note? Therein lies a healthier open throat and a healthier voice, and you can keep that, always keeping yourself in check. Are you hitting a wall? Are you building a wall? Are you building a tension wall where you're going louder and louder until you can't, go any higher? That shows you that you're being healthier with it if you can keep rising from the note. So thank you for joining me. I hope this addressed some of your concerns. I'm happy to hear from you. I'm happy to try to answer questions for you if you want to leave them in the comment section. But yeah, don't send me clips. Don't send me clips like, does this sound right? Just start sending me clips like that, because I get too much of that, and I don't know how to help you, man. So, all right, thank you.